Georgia Yards is a transformational catalyst with over 30 years of experience across leadership, training, coaching, and identity work. As a founder of Elysian Dream and Deep Spacious Identity Coaching, she empowers visionaries and change makers to break through invisible barriers and reclaim their authentic selves. Her unique blend of strategy and soul helps clients align their lives and legacies with deep purpose. Georgia is the author of Dream Journey, Breaking the Dream Barriers, a guide to bridging identity gaps in life and career. She is dedicated to helping others turn their lives into their most powerful work. You have done a great job, Georgia, and the stage is all yours.
Thank you, Melinda. And I am honored to present The Power of Professional Identity, Redefining Occupational Wellness for Global Impact. And you can go to the next slide. And so the agenda, I'm going to share who I am and why this is important. I will tell you about occupational wellness and professional identity. I will explain what the identity gap is, and I will talk about misalignment and burnout, and the flow zone, and how you can build a strong entrepreneurial identity. And you can go to the next slide. And the next slide. I am Georgia Lee Arts, the founder of Elysian Dream in 2022. I'm the author of a book called Dream Journey, Breaking the Dream Barriers, a guide to bridging identity gaps in life and career. In the 90s, I began my work in professional development. And now my focus is on personal development for professional alignment. And I am here because 25 years ago, I veered off my path of psychology and social work studies into misalignment in my own life and career. I was a professional woman who was trying to do it all. Society, culture programmed me to this value of working over caring for my health. I entered the world of leadership, but my parents raised me to believe I was equal, but it wasn't true. I had to work twice as hard to prove that I was competent and skilled. When I began experiencing health issues due to the misalignment in my career and from occupational hazards, I was seen as a woman with hysteria, not as a professional woman who only needed a lifestyle change. So instead of being referred or given tools for self-development, alignment, how to get sustainable change and make an informed decision, I was given the gold standard, which was lots of prescriptions and told, you are lazy, get back to work. I was invalidated and asking for help. By the time 2015 came, I was in complete health collapse and I couldn't work. Medical professionals didn't understand the occupational hazards, the career issues, a toxic work environment, lifestyle, burnout, women's issues, hormone imbalance, or even side effects from prescriptions. So my life became chaos. And over the course of several years, I rebuilt my life. And I felt that no human should ever have to experience a total collapse just because they didn't have the right resources. So from that experience, I created a unique life and career transformation and transition framework. And it's under licensing because I want to share it with everyone, wellness professionals, coaches, transition services, to promote global human evolution and flourishing. But in the business world, we know that women also face the issue of not being taken seriously. Sometimes we don't feel seen as intelligent and that your leadership doesn't have credibility or value. You're still fighting twice as hard. And as a woman with an innovative solution to help the private sector, individuals, and veterans, we have transition services, people who may be in power positions, they want your ideas and they're going to deny that service or tell the woman that the worth is low or your leadership is invalid. As a woman who really just needed tools and a good mentor, I was put out to the pasture with benzodiazepines. So I learned to walk away from circles, find my own worth, and keep moving forward. I have lived through issues that you might be facing in your life, your career, and your business. The Journal of Vocational Behavior, it shows that professionals who have strong identity alignment report up to 30% greater satisfaction, and they have a significantly lower rate of burnout. And it's a question of why aren't we talking more about who we are, not just what we do for a living? Now, years ago, when I hit the bottom of burnout, I wasn't lazy, but I was misaligned. It was if I had climbed to the top of this tree, only to find that my roots were shallow, my trunk was hollow, and my branches were heavy from living a life that was expected of me, instead of having alignment with my values, dreams, and who I was. So I was lost in a forest of titles, golden handcuffs, and good pay, living other people's expectations, generational programming, and not knowing how to ask for what I needed or wanted, not knowing how to set or maintain a boundary. But that breakdown became my breakthrough, and it led me to my mission, helping others with identity development, how to get sustainable change and alignment in their lives, careers, and businesses. And today we're going to explore how you can build strong roots and weather any storm. And building that strong professional identity begins with an inward journey. If you don't have a developed self, then it's hard to find that alignment. So let's begin with alignment in life and career as part of your wellness. And you can go to the next slide, please. And the next slide, please. Next slide, please. One more. So occupational wellness, it's defined as the satisfaction and enrichment that you get from your work. And the National Wellness Institute, they focus on personal fulfillment, values alignment, and life balance. And occupational wellness, know that it is one of 8 dimensions of wellness. So you have other dimensions such as your social, physical, intellectual, emotional, spiritual, environmental, and financial. But in occupational wellness, if you collapse from burnout, meaning you're in step 12, then it impacts all of the other dimensions. And you spend a lot of time at work. That's a third of your life. So alignment is crucial, not just to occupational wellness, but to the other dimensions of wellness. And the world is going to tell you to hustle, work harder, get more stuff, get a bigger home, and not figure out who you really are and find that alignment. We're not told to see beyond conditioning, behaviors, patterns, habits, or any generational programming that may be impacting us in our lives and careers. So my company did something different. We expanded the definition of occupational wellness, which is a dynamic state where yourself and your professional identity, your purpose and your values are aligned with your daily work, enabling resilience, joy, and realistic, sustainable results and making informed decisions. And know that dynamic means it's in flux, it's changeable. And the self is an archetype from Carl Jung's work. And professional identity is defined as your values, your strengths, your beliefs, and lived experiences that shape how you show up in your world of work. Know that it isn't your title, it isn't your LinkedIn profile, or even your resume. So we're defining occupational wellness through the lens of professional identity, which begins with personal development. And the Journal of Professional Identity says that when you have strong identity development, it correlates with the higher psychological resilience, confidence, and authentic leadership. But here's the crisis. So many people didn't get the right tools for personal development. So now they struggle with alignment in their work. Also note, identity is fluid and dynamic, but sometimes we get attached to it. So when we're going through a change, it can feel like we're in withdrawal. So imagine that tree again with weak roots. It's not well grounded. It has a hollow core. And instead of that strong trunk, and maybe there's top-heavy branches, and the weak roots, it's the result from all of the conditioning stories from your caregivers and what society tells us that we should be. It could be shame. And then we have branches overreaching for that external validation, trying to be seen as good enough. You will default into roles. You will lose yourself in your performance, and you're going to call it success until your tree falls over. Next slide, please. So the identity gap. So that is the in-between space where you're misaligned in life and career, and you're going through changes. It's a fluid place. It's a dynamic place. And it's the lack of identity development because you didn't get the right tools for self-discovery and how to pivot. So you didn't get those tools before the world told you who to be and before you entered the professional world of work. And it can be that you need to redefine what success is. Oftentimes we're told what that is. And it can be that you need change, or you fear change, or you're stuck and you just don't know how to pivot. And there's a question. So think about this. Are you chasing trends over authentic alignment in your life or your business? Are you chasing validation? So you might be successful as defined by wealth or followers, but maybe not satisfied. And there's many high-achieving professionals who were taught to value security over their self-expression. So I hope you find the inner alignment through growth, expansion, and evolving into your highest self so you can get that outer expression. And the gap is when you're chasing opportunities or clients. Maybe you're constantly shifting in your mission, or you're rebranding instead of coming from an authentic story. And for many, it comes with pain or shame, so it takes a lot of courage to go inward. And so that accounts for some of the entrepreneurs who land in burnout. And self-discovery, it can be shocking. Sometimes people get upset if they're facing an uncomfortable truth. But until you do, you're going to project what isn't healed onto other people and even clients, continuing in the same patterns. And we live in a fast-paced world where part of the problem is that people want everything now. They want it right now. But real transformation isn't an overnight process. It can take many years, but it's a process that's worth it. And the gap is like a tree. Think of it, it's not very well anchored in the roots. It's got that hollow trunk and top-heavy branches. And when a storm comes, it blows over. I've seen many entrepreneurs who struggle with self-reflection, and they do something similar to what is called spiritual bypassing, meaning they haven't done the inner work, but they've convinced themselves maybe that they have, and then they claim maybe they're like a spiritual guru, but I call it entrepreneurial bypassing. And if you'd like to learn more, you can visit my articles on medium.com. And I see this in many coaches, and the Research Archive reports there's a tendency with coaches. They chase opportunities and trends, but they don't have that grounded sense of self. And coaching goes beyond tools, methods, and checklists. It requires a very deep inner self-awareness and growth. So without the inner work, there's a projection of the unresolved issues on clients. And I can attest in my own business. I've seen many coaches, they suddenly try to mirror what I do. It's like the overnight copy and paste, but they haven't done the work. They've bypassed. And there's times too that people just don't want to do the work because it's hard work. I can tell you that I'm grounded and secure in who I am. I can join any group, any business group, and I have no desire to chase an opportunity, a trend, or add a new service. So if your identity is unclear, what I'm saying is there isn't a funnel, a brand, followers, fame, or any niche that will fix the root issue. And you may have initial success and you might be good at persuading people, but at some point when the inner story is unresolved, it reflects and your clients know that it's not authentic. So Han did a qualitative study of career coaches, and they found that many struggled with what is called role diffusion and identity fragmentation due to an insecurity or this external pressure where they have to conform. And Cardone and the Academy of Management Review stated that identity-driven entrepreneurs, they outperform the ones who are opportunity chasing. And that's because it leads to what is called sustainable motivation and alignment. And the psychology of coaching said that coaches who don't have a clear sense of self-conceptualization are more prone to that ethical drift and inconsistent practices and business model burnout. And you can go to the next slide. Next slide, please. So misalignment and burnout. So burnout isn't just about long hours, it's when you are misaligned. And so there's some emotional and energetic signs. So consider this as I tell you this list. Are you feeling exhausted and wired? Like you can't rest and you can't stop? Do you feel like a fraud, an imposter, despite all of your success? Do you feel disillusioned with your brand or your business direction? Are you anxious about money, clients, or launching your business? Do you fear visibility, success, or being authentically seen? Are you hyper independent where you feel you have to do everything alone by yourself? Do you feel disconnected from purpose and intuition? Are you triggered by other people's success? Do you feel emotionally numb or reactive? Do you always feel like you're turned on and you can't turn off your business brain? And now let's shift to the inner dialogue. What are you telling yourself? Does this sound like you? Do you say, I just need to work harder? Why isn't this working? I feel like I am constantly chasing clients. I've invested so much and I don't feel aligned. I don't know who I am outside my business. Everyone else makes it look easy. Maybe I'm just not cut out for this. I can't stop pivoting, and I keep trying all these new strategies. I don't feel like myself anymore. I'm scared to raise my prices. No one sees my value. I feel like I have to prove that I'm worthy of success. And you also may have some behavioral patterns. So ask yourself this. Are you constantly rebranding, relaunching, or pivoting? Are you buying endless courses and not implementing them? Are you creating offers based on trends and not your values? Do you lower your prices or over-delivering out of fear? Do you copy and mimic other coaches' styles and their content? Are you procrastinating on visibility, launches, and outreach? Do you work late nights and then skip your self-care? Are you taking on clients that aren't aligned with your business just to make money? Do you feel stuck in perfectionism and indecision? And are you emotionally dumping in business groups or on your clients? Are you avoiding the hard conversations or boundaries? Do you tell yourself, I'll rest when I hit this milestone? And then there's a generational and subconscious programming behind this. Do you feel that you must sacrifice to succeed? That money is hard to earn, but easy to lose? That you are only valuable if you're productive? That you have to play small to stay safe? That it isn't okay to outshine others? What you do, who do you think you are? And survival first because dreams are a luxury. And keeping the peace, you better not rock the boat. And that burnout is normal because rest means you're lazy. And we don't talk enough about emotions in business and how you might describe your problems. So do you say, I just need better marketing. I think I need a new coach. Maybe I should try another funnel strategy. My audience are just not ready. I need to niche down or up or sideways. Maybe I should just get another certification. It's just a mindset issue I'll keep pushing through. But what you actually need is alignment, and it's who you are beneath the brand. So nervous system regulation and trauma-informed coaching is also important, and getting a values-based business model and having a clear vision. Doing the shadow work and exploring the ancestral patterns. And also think about giving yourself a permission slip. It's okay to slow down and stop performing, and it's okay to come home to self. So on LinkedIn, I have an article called Career Enmeshment, and it's a hidden trap of losing yourself in your work. So you can get it there. So, and career enmeshment is when your career, it becomes so tied to your identity and it begins overshadowing everything else in your life. It's when you can't differentiate between who you are and the work that you do. And so there's this blurred boundary, and it can manifest in having this overwhelming need to succeed, constant work-related stress, or feeling lost when you're not working. There's a lot of causes for entrepreneurial burnout, and here's a few. Maybe you feel like you don't have control or autonomy over your business. There's a lot of emotional demands, a low work-life balance. Maybe you have blurred boundaries between work and life. Are you overcommitting? Do you feel isolated? Maybe you've expanded your business, so you have all these new responsibilities and you're managing a team. A lot of times at the roots of things are insecurity, and that can look like imposter syndrome, seeking external validation, reactive branding, constantly changing your niche, or fear of missing out, and it's chasing all of the shiny new objects. On LinkedIn, I also have another article that you can read. It's called Who Are You? The Power of Professional Identity. So without a strong professional identity, sometimes people feel lost, unfulfilled, and disconnected. So when you have a strong identity alignment, you have a greater quality of life. And according to the Journal of Occupational Health Psychology, a strong professional identity is linked to you have lower rates of depression and anxiety, and you have better physical health, because misalignment can lead to chronic stress, high blood pressure, and sleep issues. So this is a story about a coach. She came to me for help. On the outside, she looked successful, but she was very exhausted. She was chasing her clients, constantly rebranding and pivoting, changing her niche, changing her story, and her followers were completely confused. She was rooted in scarcity mindset and imposter syndrome. She was in survival mode, needing external validation. She felt she had never been seen, and she felt she had to prove her worth. So her brand and her authentic story were kind of like that poorly rooted tree with a hollow core and a top heavy canopy. We began doing the foundational deep inner work. And at times she got upset because truths would come up and she would get defensive. So she would go through periods of denial, anger, projection, sometimes at me and sometimes at other people. But as a coach, I don't take it personally. I expect it. And looking at shame and pain, it's very, very hard. So look at the leaves on the tree and how they project a shadow. So I helped her with shadow work, her projections, and sometimes people block out what they learn and they turn back because it's scary. So they never actually complete the work and they remain stuck. But this coach stuck with me. We spent about a year unearthing all of the root stories, healing her nervous system. And so with the addition of energy work and rewriting the stories. And today she has an aligned business and a niche. She is secure and embodied. She now attracts clients that are aligned with her, not just any client. And her brand is like a strong tree, rooted and secure, that weathers any storm. Now think about the core of a tree, solid and ringed, and the rings are the stories of the tree, the trials and tribulations of its storms and its strengths. So for the first time in her business, she experienced what I call flow. And you can go to the next slide, please. Next slide, please. So flow is, if you're constantly chasing and you're misaligned, then flow can be very difficult to achieve. In positive psychology, flow is a state where your time feels like it disappears and you feel fully alive in your work. Now, think of a time that you felt completely immersed in something. It was focused, it felt effortless, and you lost track of time. It's a sign of alignment. And psychologist 𝐕𝐈𝐑𝐓𝔐, he describes flow as the optimal state of consciousness, and that's where you feel and perform your best. And flow isn't just something that you stumble into, you have to design for it. So professional identity is a blueprint before design happens. When you know who you are and you bring the truth into your work, you can stop chasing. So I'd like you to ask yourself, when is a time that you were completely immersed, that you lost track of time, what you were doing, and what was it? And what kinds of challenges bring you alive? What about your business is draining you? What about your business makes you feel like you are in the flow zone? What roles, habits, patterns, or people drain you? Perhaps you're not aware of what those are. And if you don't feel flow in your business, it's time for self-discovery. And there's a few tools I would like to share. And you can go to the next slide, please. Next slide, please. So the Myers-Briggs Type Inventory and the Clifton Strengths. So identity is a foundation, and when it's grounded, strong, and secure, you don't have to constantly rebrand and pivot. So let's talk about understanding personality through the lens of the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. So it can enhance your self-understanding, and not as a label, but more of a doorway. So think about how you gain energy and interact with the world. And you have introverts, they prefer solitude and alone time, while you have an extrovert who may thrive on the social interaction and external stimulation. Do you know your MBTI type as an entrepreneur? It could be how you approach the world. And a judger will prefer structure, organization, and routine, while a perceiver, they're more flexible, spontaneous, and adaptable. And it's also about voice discovery, how your type communicates its truth, story, and emotion. And then decision-making patterns, so insight into the internal logic versus the emotional cues. So you have the thinking versus feeling. And also the writing and reflection styles are different. If you are an intuitive, you tend to write symbolically, whereas a sensor tends to write grounded in their lived experiences. And then it's also about healing the narrative blind spots, because thinkers might suppress their feelings, while a feeler might overlook a deeper analysis. In transforming archetypes, so each MBTI type correlates with what is a shadow and a light expression in their archetypal patterns. But the MBTI types also experience burnout in different ways. So for an ENTJ, so we have an extroverted, intuitive thinker judger, it could be from overworking for external success, but neglecting rest and relationships. For an ENTP, so somebody who's extroverted, intuitive, and they're a thinker and a perceiver, their burnout could be from chasing many ideas at one time. It could be a scattered focus and maybe boredom. But for an INTJ, so somebody who's introverted and intuitive and a thinker and a judger, it could be from being just, it might show up as being irritable. But burnout reasons they happen for many reasons. It could be the design of a work center, the demands of a job, an occupational hazard, And it can be also driven on an individual level, maybe a personality type or a shadow system that is operating in the background, things like beliefs, habits, patterns, generational programming. Another test that you can use is the Clifton Strengths. When you align your business with your strengths, you can find better fulfillment, a better engagement with the work that you're doing and performance, and you'll have greater business satisfaction and well-being. And it's also helping to find your business path clarity. So there are a few powerful practices that are rooted in neuroscience and creative tools for growth, change, and healing. And if you can go to the next slide, please. And next slide. So neuroscience and narrative reinvention is a really great tool. When I worked as a director and a treater at a clinic that specialized in repetitive transcranial magnetic stimulation known as TMS, so it is an electromagnetic treatment helping patients overcome depression and anxiety. So I worked under a team of neurologists and psychiatrists, and they had me use narrative story during the treatment. So think of it as sculpting wet clay. The TMS softens the structure of the brain, and the story is what shapes it. And the patient can reconstruct meaning, creating a coherent sense of self between the past, present, and future. And that's very important to healing and identity. And the brain organizes experience through narrative coherence. So that is your brain and body connection. And the use of neuroscience and narrative coaching, it engages the right hemisphere of the brain where your emotion, imagery, and intuition is, and also integrates it with the rational left hemisphere of your brain, which is your language, logic, and sequencing. And it deepens the emotional healing and builds cognitive emotional resilience. Telling your story in a safe environment can regulate your nervous system, reduce stress, and form new neural pathways. So that is something called neuroplasticity. Your brain can remake itself. Telling your story rewrites the ending from your nervous system, what it was stuck in. From internalizing, I am broken, to this event happened to me. Verbal storytelling helps release trauma stored in the body. The voice is a vibrational channel moving that stuck energy. When we're dealing with traumatic memories, they're often stored somatically and non-verbally. Narrative is a way to translate fragmented experiences into language so the person can reintegrate their different selves. And I no longer work at the clinic, but as a coach helping people who don't have conditions. And I use a modality, and it's called narrative coaching. And it helps facilitate right and left brain narrative coherence. So in addition to having clients speak for release, I also include writing for somatic release and energy work to access the subconscious and energy body. I'd like to tell you a story about Maya. So she was a successful businesswoman. She had a long list of accomplishments and certifications, several thousand followers. But she was a shapeshifter. And I think all of us know one. So 1 month, she was a mindset coach. The next, a wellness influencer. The next, a business strategist. And the next, a burnout coach. And the next, a weight loss coach. And several other titles. She was constantly rebranding. She was in her own burnout. She was chasing every new trend. Maya's default mode network, so that's your brain, it was holding her self-concept, her internal image of who she was. It was shaped by rejection and trauma, people-pleasing, and feeling invisible and like she wasn't enough. What I saw was clay and healing. Her brain was trying to keep her safe by constantly adapting to every new trend. She was protecting herself. She had been rewarded for what others needed her to be. I introduced her to her shadow self, parts that she had hidden and disowned to be liked, marketed, and so she could be seen as being enough. She met parts of herself. One was angry because she kept abandoning her voice. Another was jealous of other people's success and people who felt certain about themselves. Another resented being invisible, even though she was in the spotlight. We found the shadow archetypes that were leading her business. She rewrote her stories. She made peace with her shadows, and she found security. She built a new business rooted in wholeness, not her wounds. She stopped pivoting and building brands to avoid an inner truth. No more copying, pasting, or chasing clients. She stopped outsourcing her worth to algorithms, and she began leading her business from her authentic voice. She was amazed at her newfound energy, and instead of using it to chase, she now uses it to create. For the first time in her life, she felt secure and she stopped comparing and chasing. A little bit of science behind the shift. We rewired what is called the neural loop of identity dissonance through reflection, ritual, and repair. And she found what is called narrative coherence by integrating shadows. Her story went from fragmented to whole, and her brain finally relaxed. She also found polyvagal safety. She found safety in finally being still and not constant action and chasing. And what is called identity consolidation. Her prefrontal cortex now aligns with a stable self-concept. And next slide, please. Next slide, please. So just to wrap up, I've told you today about redefining occupational wellness through the lens of professional identity, the importance of self-development for life and career alignment to avoid burnout and create global human flourishing. I told you about the identity gap and flow, and I gave you some tools to build a strong entrepreneurial identity. You're not a resume. You're not your LinkedIn profile. You are a constellation of experience, stories, values, and possibility. When you align who you are with your work, you avoid burnout, you ignite your impact. This is the power of redefining occupational wellness. This is how we build global change, one aligned human at a time. Thank you. And if you would like to connect with me, if you go to the next slide, one more slide. I am Georgia Liartz on LinkedIn. My business is Elysian Dream. My website is elysiandream.net. And you can reach out to me on email at georgia.elysiandream@gmail.com. Thank you.
Yes, Georgia, that was really an energetic talk. And we have a few questions from our audience, Georgia.
Okay, I'll try my best. And if I can't answer them on the spot, they know what my email is. If they can email them, I will always send a more.
Yeah, sure. I will ask you one, and the remaining will be posted in your email.
Okay.
Yeah. What personal experiences or turning points led you to do this powerful work in identity and transformation?
So I was in a career, and we're very programmed in our lives by caregivers, the people around us, and society telling us maybe that we're equal and we can do any job. So I'm dating myself. So in 1991, I joined the military, and I served for 24 years. But we know there are male-dominated systems, and that's not always a bad thing. But at the end of my career, I was in a very toxic environment. So I was in burnout. And if you hit stage 12 of burnout, you go through identity struggles. And also, I was in a traumatizing environment. So when you have a trauma, you go through identity issues. You have a crisis. When I was in transition, I was medically retired from my profession. There was just a real lack of substantial services to move me forward and help me reestablish a career or health. And I've been highly trained and skilled in the art of finding answers. And I said, I don't want to feel like I can't reclaim my career as a woman. That's all I really ever wanted to do. So I set about looking for tools, and I put a whole bunch of tools together because no person should have to feel stuck in a career like, I don't know how to pivot because the pay is good, because we think that is all that there is, or not knowing how to deal with a toxic situation, or not understanding what an identity crisis is. And if you're a human, from the time you're a teenager to the time you're elderly, you go through identity changes, and people need to have this information. And sometimes it's how we got programmed. And as women, it can be, the way we're raised. So we pick up things from our caregivers, like we have to prove our worth, and we bring that into our work. And sometimes it can drive uh, just issues in our business, in our careers, even in our marriages and relationships. So helping people with shadow work and showing them all of the facets of who they are. Life is just too short. So I nearly died from everything I went through as a woman in burnout. My treatment was gold standard. Lots of prescriptions, benzodiazepines, which we know are bad news, denial of side effects. And I said, I'm worth more. Isn't there a better way for people to move forward other than, what about lifestyle change? What about digging into the depths of who I was as a person, who I was as a little girl, a teenager, and now as a grown woman? People need to have those tools.
Yeah. And yours is a really inspiring journey, and you are inspiration to many women, Georgia. And thank you
Thank
so much for your valuable time here. And be on the backstage and join the next session, please.
Thank you, Melinda.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.